Hope you've had a chance to watch part 1 on the challenges of employment with Twimukye. Here's part 2. Our experience with employment and working with people, migrant communities, is that in the end, they end up lowering their aspirations. They end up not achieving what they thought they could. In that process that you've described, which is repositioning, it seems like you underposition yourself in the end.
Yes, and I think the challenge sometimes, again, going back to the system, is people come with the skills and the qualifications, and so they, in the process of repositioning themselves, they end up attending training after training after training, but still not getting anywhere.
Yes.
And so it then becomes a big challenge because I've got all these qualifications.
Yes.
I've attended all these trainings.
Yes.
But I'm still not getting into the labor market.
Yeah. So, and that's something that I find challenging because people we did a research piece, and we worked with this lady who'd gone and done several degrees, and we know people personally that have done degrees, they have qualified, they've tried everything, they've trained, you trained and it worked for you in the volunteering, but you still end up in a place where nothing happens. Well, some people get through like you, but our experience seems to suggest that a lot of people don't eventually aspire for more. And in fact, once you've got that job, you settle because you have this false sense of security. You've got a job, you dare not lose it. Whether it's cleaning, whether it's care, and you are actually whatever, teacher, or you just settle because the jobs that people go for are cleaning, care, security, and maybe the hotel industry. But if you get that job, you consider yourself very lucky to get that opportunity, and you just settle for that. Not that those jobs are bad. It's just if that's not for you, you end up under positioning yourself and not being able to progress or aspire for more. Would you say something about that?
Yes, I would, definitely. I think it's fair to say that the employment market is very competitive. Competitive in the sense that there are so many job seekers out there, and coronavirus has made that worse. We know the scale of unemployment that we're going to be faced with is huge. And some of the sectors that employed migrants are also beginning to close down.
Yeah, that's true.
Hospitality sector, the to face huge amounts of challenges. To say a few things. One is that obviously there is no one who disputes that there is discrimination and institutional racism within the labor market. Already said that it's not that migrants are not, it's not that they don't have the right qualifications. Perhaps about how we position ourselves to compete at the same wavelength with other values. And in terms of when we start to talk about things that need to change, that the way the recruitment are carried out will have to be significantly changed if we have to make the labor market more diverse. And diverse, not in terms of having one black face there, one orange person there, one. But it's about diverse in terms of seniority, decision making, and participation. Those are key things that we have to look at. But and employers need to think about how they carry out their recruitment. Are they reaching out to certain sections of society that they are not reaching? And this is not necessarily alone around Black, Asian, ethnic communities, but also women and disabled people. Of equality. That's really fundamentally important. The other thing that perhaps we need to talk about is about the fact that because it's so hard to get that job, once you're in it, you find it's a experience to even contemplate living.
Yeah.
I've never been in one job for more than a decade, but you know, luckily, I enjoy what I do. For me, there is a combination of that. You know, I do this is why I exist for, and do that because I love what I'm doing. I was to be looking at another job I have to think about. Does it give me the same security that I have as a winner at the moment? I still have a 13-year-old to look after and take a risk about losing the job I have if I take it. So that's number one. The other one is the system where we get trapped in stay-level jobs. Stay-level jobs, I mean jobs like in hospitality and cleaning. You enter as a cleaner and you remain in that another 10, 20 years because career progression options are non-existent. You can't be the director of that company unless you explore going into business independently. That's something that many of us do find very, because we don't know if we can survive.
Glass ceilings. I'd heard about glass ceilings. It was the first time I was hearing about sticky floors. I think I was in a women's enterprise event where they called it that, and I thought, yeah, that's true. You're stuck on the ground level. You're not going anywhere.
And Oxfam, I think, did research a couple of years ago out about in-work poverty and discovered that most people who are in those kind of low-paid shift work, pay-level jobs are more likely to be stuck there 20 years later. The reason is not because they don't want to progress. They work long hours, they have responsibilities. So the life is so complicated. You have to try and make sure you work long hours in order to have enough money to pay your bills. For you know, so we have something has to drastically change in terms of shifting that culture that to remain cleaners for the rest of our lives. If we have opportunities for career progression, and that is something that employers should have a duty for in supporting their employees to progress to the next level.
And actually,
whether it's in terms of supporting training opportunities, letting them to go for further education, so that they can then progress to.
And I think it comes back to that value issue, because when we did our research, we found that people were not actually allowed or given the opportunity, even when training opportunities were available.
They were not selected.
They were not selected for those opportunities. So
exactly. So again, that's a practice issue that employers should have a duty for, because I do believe that when employers look after their employees in terms of their well-being, in terms of pay, then productivity improves.
It does.
If are struggling from hand to mouth, getting to debt, then you have ill health, absenteeism, everything like that. So in order to have a productive workforce, employers have to work with their employees.
And we know that migrants really work hard. They are very loyal employees. And if you look after them, they really look after you. But it's challenging to think, because there are no career progression routes. It also impacts young people. It's challenging when people are not getting the opportunities, because it impacts the next generation.
Yes, it does.
We worked with one of the women again in the research piece, and it's in our actual research paper that we did last year, that we launched this year, beginning of this year. And it showed one of the women, the child was saying, oh, but Mom, you keep saying to me that I have to read hard and study hard, but you've done all these degrees and you've got no job. So it causes young people and other people as well to be demotivated.
That's right, yeah.
Lowering their expectations and making it difficult for them to actually think positively about moving forward. What do you think Scotland could do differently? How could Scotland change or do something differently to allow for migrants and the workforce within migrant communities to contribute more, perhaps be better supported, to be active participants within the economy and the workplace?
And probably to be recognized as well and appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, Scotland needs to acknowledge that we're a diverse community.
Yes.
I think the othering effect is one of the things that keep us behind. Me, I've been here for 20 years. I have a British citizenship, but there are times when I find myself feeling as an outsider and I belong. I belong to Scotland, I belong to Glasgow. So that sense of belonging needs to be reflected in everything that Scotland does.
Yes.
The migrants have a role to play, have a contribution to make, and very competent, hardworking resource be utilized even better than we are at the moment. Changing that has to be a process that acknowledges that there is institutional racism. If people keep thinking there is no racism, then we'll be here 50 years later.
Yeah, that's right.
And our children will continue to suffer this. And this is why Black Lives Matter is being very, very vocal at the moment, because systems have been allowed to go on and from generation to generation.
That's right, yeah.
We challenge the Scottish government to look at what can be changed systematically. I know the government, for example, developed the race equality framework. Framework alone is not enough unless resources are available to shift what the framework says. And to me, the framework now is just a statement of intent, but no has actually taken place yet.
Yes.
So that's where, and changing that, they cannot change it alone. At that table.
That's right.
Yes.
That change.
Yes.
So it means whatever, whether it's the police, whether it's NHS, whether it's the education institutions, have to work with us, the people that experience that racism, have to tell them how it can be changed. Without that, an expert sitting, a consultant sitting somewhere and writing a document is not going to reduce
change anything.
That's number one. And I think it can't be done at government level alone. There is for a whole of society to reflect on our practices, on how we relate to each other as human beings. You know, the pandemic in itself has shown a light vulnerabilities in society across the board, whether you're a prince or an immigrant or a pauper. And therefore, it's the first time, I think, in my lifetime, where we have all seen that we are all human race. Still, areas where, because of the health I live, because I'm disadvantaged from a deprived background, from whatever, then my vulnerabilities are more than someone else that has everything else at their disposal. So that's important. The second thing we need to do is about looking at young people, thinking that my children and the children of our children should not live the life we've led. Because they've gone to school here, they've got the degrees from here, so they cannot even talk about the NALIC thing I was talking about earlier. He's either from University of Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, or whoever. The system is not letting them excel the way we would want it to be. So support for young people in terms of the mentoring support that they get, so the career advice they get, how they are treated within, and how they are encouraged to aim higher is important. And I want to bring that to life by giving an example of my son. My son, when we moved from Kaduna to Govan, his teachers said, "You've gone to live in Govan, hopes of being an engineer out of the window," simply because of where we lived. What I made sure was that he was not going to change school. He had to remain in the school so that he can get the education that would have taken him to where he wanted to be. So we need to think, and this is now where I'm saying it cannot be one department. That if you live in Govan, you are a good, a wrong one. Because in Govan, there are people of different characteristics.
That's correct, yeah.
So who will end up on the street or whatever. We need to invest in communities to make sure that everyone has an equal fighting chance. So relegating people because of where they live and the circumstances in their life is not a good system out there. And that's one of the processes and systems that need to be changed. The second thing is my son wanted, once he became an engineer, looked for jobs like anyone else, failed to get a job. He worked in a shop for 2 years, working as a sales person in a shop. I'm not saying that's not a bad.
That's right, yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad job. And had gone to university, he had a mechanical engineering degree. Honestly, where is the justice in that? So when I kept pushing him, eventually he got a job in England. And as part of wanting to aim higher, he wanted to do a PhD. His job in England to come back to Scotland to do a PhD at the University of Strathclyde, was told that because he had lived in England for 3 years, so now his dream of doing a PhD, which he had kindly said was doing it for me. He was not even doing it for himself. He was saying, "Mother has come a long way. She'll be proud of me if she can witness me having that Dr. Waguma." Now that dream has been thrown in the wind. He got a job with the NHS and he feels comfortable. He has become a comfortable employee of a PhD.
And he's not an engineer. He's not doing an engineering job.
No, he's doing a job where anybody who leaves school could become a technician and trained as an apprentice and as an apprentice. And so he's a technician, basically, with qualification.
And I think
now he's comfortable. He has the wage coming through. He can pay his rent.
Yeah.
That's where he is.
But that is the thing.
That keeps us behind.
Those are the things that need to be changed in Scotland. Because if people get the education here and end up transferring to England to get the jobs and maybe go in England and maybe do something and then come back wanting to contribute to the economy in Scotland, but there's still those barriers. I think some of those things need to be addressed. Those issues need to be addressed.
Actually, his employer in England had already supported his application to, I think, Salford University in Manchester, because that course was available back home at the University of Strathclyde. He chose to come home. Little did he know that there were going to be barriers along the way. So I don't think, it's something that he's going to pursue now in the next. Being me, I'll keep knocking on the door. Where is my PhD? But at the moment, Yeah, he's busy being like any of us, working and paying the bills.
Yeah.
That's such, and I think that is where we really need to make change, because not only is it affecting us, it's
now
affecting
affecting
our young
our children.
people.
Yeah.
Now, what happens to the young person that saw him study, perform very well, and not get anywhere? Why should they work hard? Why should they progress when they are challenged?
There's one more point that perhaps I should say is
Yes.
that this, we can talk about institutional racism and all the practices around employment and the employers, but there's also about the policy, the government. And for me, I think one of the things that people from Black and minority ethnic communities need to start thinking about is that we have to learn to influence change from within. We don't have any African MSP in Scotland. I've never been even remotely interested in politics as a person, but I think it would be good if some people, maybe Fiona, I would want to encourage you, taking the next step. We need voices in places that matter, that come up with the policies. I usually listen attentively to what Hamza Yousaf has to say. We had about 20 Hamza Yousaf speaking on behalf. Perhaps it would be different. So we cannot only make noise from outside, we have to be making the noise.
And I think, again, that goes back to the systems and processes changing, because I think, again, for us, for Scotland to have no one from the BME communities in terms of Black people, I think as much as we talk about these things, some of these things, the government itself, the systems themselves people have got to sit down and address those issues and change those processes.
Thank you very much. But I want us to finish on the note where something you mentioned and that you've brought back at the end. The fact that we need people at the table. We've had so many employers contacting us, asking us, how do we shift this? How do we change this? What do we now do? Think about, because obviously with the situation, with the George Floyd situation, people ask, what do we do? And I'm saying, well, you don't need to understand to be empathetic. If you understand, if you hear what's going on, if it were your child, if it were your sister, your mother going through that, you would first of all have empathy, which would mean you want to do something. Yes, the second, you'd have to be proactive. You'd have to do something about it. And you say, and I think that for things to change, we need to see migrants, people of color at the table. I remember somebody again saying that if you're not at the table, you are on the menu. And I think that is actually true. We need to be at the table. And again, it was the Poverty Truth Commission that said, nothing about us without us is for us. So if we are not at the table, nothing is going to change. These consultants that bring information, they can bring the theory, but we actually know the solution. So bring us to the table. Thank you very much, Twimukye, for your time. Thank you for being our fan. We just look forward to another day when we can have other conversations. And if you've been listening...
Thank you so much for having me. I hope whatever I've said makes sense.
Yes, it does.
And thank you for having me and your trust. And
thank you very much. And if you're listening, thank you. And if you're listening, you've had the time to listen to this and you've taken your time to listen to this and you want to hear more about what we are talking about and get more awareness on these issues, please subscribe to our channel and also give us a like. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.